So I'm just gonna write save the, I don't know, like users info. I'll put the user's login info. Alright. So that's public. Pass in reviews. Alright. And if you highlight that and just hit Alt Enter, then that was red because we didn't import it. And another thing is, most of the time whenever you just type those things out, they automatically import. But if they ever turn red, then a cool little tip is you can just click it and hit Alt Enter and it'll import for you, so you don't have to, like, I don't know, it'll save you like 2 seconds of typing, but still, you know, save yourself some time. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to allow shared preferences to be used in our app, and of course there's a special class called shared preferences right there, and this allows us access to create and edit shared preferences files. It's a little more complex than this, but the first thing we need to do, might as well just, let me name it shared pref. I really don't like objects names the same as the classes because, I don't know, if I ever want to create like multiple ones, it gets kind of messy. But anyways, what we're going to do right now is saying, okay, we want to use shared preferences in our app, and also we need to add another setting to say we only want this application, the app that we're making right now, to be able to access this file that has the user's info in it. Since, again, this is their name and their password, so we want to keep this data secure. So in order to do that, you write get shared preferences, and the first parameter is the name of your preferences file. So in this app, we're just going to save the login information. But let's say, I don't know, maybe we're making another app that we want to save their like notification settings. Well, we're going to make another shared preferences file for that, so you can have multiple shared preferences files. You're not just limited to one. So for this one, I'm just going to name user info. And the second parameter is just a privacy setting. If we write context, and then we just write mode private, what this means is that this file is private. In other words, only this application can access it. And there are types of shared preferences that you can share between different applications, but for this one, it's going to be private since it's login information. So now that we pretty much have access to use shared preferences, what we want to do now is we want to create an object that allows us to edit this file, to either add shared preferences or well, we're going to be reading them later whenever we display it. But if we go to shared preferences and then we call editor, and I'll just name my object editor. What this does is it gives us an object that we can pretty much write to this file. So shared pref dot edit is what you set this equal to, and now we can start adding stuff to this file. So how do we do that? We take our editor and we call a method called put string. So every thing in your shared preferences file is going to come in the form of a key value pair. So it's kind of like a really simple database that only has 2 columns. So the first one we're just going to call username, and it's essentially just putting a variable in your file. So we're going to say, okay, make a key in here called username, and for the value, we're just going to get whatever value was typed in here. So of course, if you go to username input right there, which was that text field, and you write get text, and then we just write to string. What this is going to do is it's going to take whatever text they typed in here, convert it to a string, and set it equal to the value of username. So right now, this isn't actual code, but it's just really easy to see what's going on. Your file is pretty much going to be like this. Username equals, I don't know, like Bucky Roberts. So again, obviously this isn't real code or anything. I'm just going to show you guys what's going on behind the scenes. So therefore, later on, whenever we say, okay, go to this file, user info, and print out username, it's going to say, okay, username equals Bucky Roberts, so it's going to print out Bucky Roberts. So again, this is like a really simplified version of what's going on. But now we have to do the same thing for the password field. So if we actually just copy this, we're going to use that editor to put another string in, and this string, we'll just name it password, and this one is just password input to string. So now we got two different variables essentially in our shared preferences file. So in order to actually submit this or have the editor actually write it, you have to write editor.apply. I know it's kind of unnecessary. Well, it's not unnecessary. It kind of looks like a extra step, but hey, that's what Android makes you do. So now, just so the user has a little indicator of what's going on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make a toast, and I'm going to make text, and I'll just say this for context. What can I write? Like saved. Alright. So whenever they actually click this button, you know, I want them to know that something happened. You did it correctly. So they click it, and it just says saved. A nice little pop-up on the screen for them. So then they aren't like guessing. And how long do we want this to last? How about length long? And of course, whenever you have a toast, you need to show it, which pretty much makes it display on the screen. So this is the only code that we have to write to save the user's login info. So whenever they click the button, it's going to get that text and save it to this file. So now, the only thing that we have to do, and actually if we run the app, then it'll run fine. We won't have any bugs or anything, hopefully, unless I mess something up. But whenever they click this display info button, nothing is going to happen because we need to create that method right now. So all this method is going to do is print out the saved data. And let me run my emulator. Forgot to kick that off. Actually, I'm afraid that if I run it, sometimes when I'm recording these tutorials, I'll start the little emulator, and then in the middle of my tutorial, you see how like you can see where my mouse is moving around? It'll just get stuck on the emulator. So I'm like, okay, and it's really hard to follow, and it ticks me off, and I feel like drop kicking my computer. So I'm not going to start that emulator, and I just rambled on about something stupid for like 5 minutes. Whatever. Alright. Public void display. Is that what I named it? On click, where you at? Okay, display data. Alright. So in here, we just want to pass through our views. Now, how do we display the data from a shared preferences file? Well, the first thing we need to do is, this is really easy, we just copy this, and this, of course, just says, okay, we have an app, and it's using shared preferences, and what shared preferences file that do you want to use? How about this one? It's the only one we got, so we'll just reference that one right there. So now, what we need to do is, we can actually just make variables. That'll probably be a little bit easier. So if you call your shared preferences, which is pretty much just a reference to the file, and you call a method called getString, what you do here is you pass in what string you want. So in this file, we have two strings, username and password. So we're saying, okay, get the username, and for the second parameter, we don't write anything. Since it's going to return whatever value is in there, we don't want to pass in anything right now. So I know this is kind of weird syntax too, but essentially what this is going to return whenever you call this method is whatever my username is, Bucky Roberts, let's say. So now we can print this out later on, but first, we copy this and do it for password. So make another temporary variable called pw, and this is of course equal to password. So again, make sure that the keys that you're putting in are equal to the keys that you're retrieving. And this second parameter, just to clarify so I don't leave you guys hanging, if you ever have a key that you access like tuna and it doesn't exist, this second parameter is what it returns if the key doesn't exist at all. So by default, it's just going to return nothing. And there you go. So that's what that is. If you guys were wondering why you need a second one when you're not writing any information, that's what it is. So now that we have two variables, what we can just do is we can take Bucky's text, which was this area down here, and set it equal to whatever text was in that file. So Bucky's text, set text, and the first thing is name, and let me just add like a space in between. PW. Alright, so it'll print out the name and the password. So now let me pause this and actually run my emulator. Alright, so hopefully this works. Let me type in like Bucky Bucky Sucky. I meant to type Schmucky, but you know, Bucky Sucky. Oh, whatever. That's the dumbest. Alright. I just type pass 123 for that. So now I'm gonna hit save info, and we get a little toast that says saved. And of course, if we even delete these, we delete that and that, so we can see that it's definitely not pulling from there anymore. And I'm gonna hit display info. Then what it's gonna do is it's gonna read from that file that was saved in the background, that shared preferences file, and it's gonna print out Bucky Sucky, which is apparently my new username, and pass 12. So there you go. And of course, if you ever wanna, I don't know, like change your username to the New Boston, coolest username ever, in your pass to like cheese 30, you can save that. So it takes it, saves it to a file again, overwrites it, and display it, and check it out. So pretty cool. That is the basics of how you use shared preferences. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.